Hello everyone, it's the storyteller here. I've prepared something slow, eerie, and sleep-friendly for you tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Are you drifting off already, or still wide awake? Dream time. The barren charcoal seas of Mare Crisium span the horizon in all directions. The vast Picard crater is the only natural feature of this desolate landscape. Its high outer ridges cast a long shadow across the crash site as our white, hot star races towards sunset and lunar night approaches. "Harper, put your jumper on," says Mama's voice. "It's getting cold." The earth looms large in the sky, about 20 times more massive than it should be. I take small, slow steps towards it, transfixed. That shouldn't be there. It's too close. Our planet is spinning rapidly. Each day only lasts 3 seconds. With each rotation, this beautiful blue marble becomes ever more obscured by wildfire smoke, noxious gases, and nuclear fallout, until the permacloud forms and engulfs our home world, suffocating my view. I leap up high in desperation and reach with straining fingertips for the earth. Floating 10 feet above the lunar surface, a gravitational tug of war fights over me. The mighty planet wants me to come home, but the proximity of the moon wins this match, pulling me back gently to its dusty surface. Our stricken Orion X command module now lies before me, casting a great silhouette across the faint backdrop of our galaxy. This impressive machine towers over me, yet we are both still dwarfed by the endless nothingness of the lunar surface and the infinite space beyond. I hesitate at the entrance hatch door. A familiar tightness across my chest warns me to back away. Death is close. But a promise is a promise, so I force a quivering hand against the frozen palm port scanner. Nothing happens straight away, but sure enough, the warmth of my touch thaws the device until the emergency lighting illuminates the sensor pad and the outer hatch slides open. Taking a deep breath of nothing, I step in, shiver, and rub my arms as a ghostly chill runs through me. The inner airlock door is wide open to the main chamber. The lunar colony raiders who downed our ship have stripped it of all equipment. It's just a broken shell now, like me. This is usually the point when I awake, sweating and panicking. But this time is different somehow. This time, I'm ready to accept what has happened, to accept what I must do. Willing myself onwards, I creep around the other side of the central seating column. Burnsy's body is still strapped into his flight chair in full EVA suit, just as we were forced to leave him. The helmet visor is smashed, and I recoil at the sight of my dead friend's face. His one good remaining brown eye stares at me, without seeing me. His features are perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space, with no oxygen or bacteria to do their worst. "All right, Harper," says Burnsy in his musical Welsh accent. "Took you long enough. Fancy taking this helmet off for me." Icy tears freeze upon my cheeks. "But I'll need to pull that shard out from your eye first. I'm bled out already. Just go for it." So I grip the metal fragment, once part of the ship's outer hull, with one hand and brace the other against Burnsy's forehead. There's a squelching sound as I ease it out from his eye socket. The gooey remains of his eyeball and some flesh and brain matter come out with it, making me retch. Burnsy doesn't move or make a sound until I have freed the 10-inch bloody dagger from his skull. I fling it away from us, exhale in relief, then twist off his cracked helmet. A pool of congealed blood oozes out with a sickly metallic stench. I throw up over my prison scrubs. "Ah, that's better. Cheers, mate," says Burnsy. "Hey, what's with the outfit?" "Solitary confinement. 1 year for sabotaging the mission." "Well, that's bollocks," he says. "It was your father, again. You weren't to know he was in league with those colonist bastards." I nod grimly, then clean my hands as best I can on my soiled uniform. Then, with great care, I remove both of his gloves and hold his freezing hands in mine. "I'm so sorry, Burnsy. I gave him the launch codes. It's all my fault." He reaches out to touch my cheek. "No, it's not. Your father tricked and betrayed you. Betrayed all of us. Come on now. No use crying. His love and compassion are more than I deserve. Tears are easy to wipe away. Guilt is not." I collapse into his strong, welcome arms. "I've missed you so much. I'll never forgive myself. Harper, this is not on you. Honestly, let it go." His undead hands gently prise me away, then undo his harness buckle. Taking my hands again, the body of Morgan Burns stands up. "Now let me go. It's time. I'm ready." I shake my head. I'm not. He holds out an old-fashioned, wooden-handled spade towards me. "We promised each other, remember? It's time." Taking the spade in one hand, I turn to face the exit hatch. Come on then. We step out onto the moon's black surface. My whole body convulses, and teeth start chattering. So I put on the old green woolly jumper and sheepskin boots that Mama keeps by the veranda. Then Burnsy and I head out for a nighttime stroll under the stars. Hand in hand, we walk across the dusty front yard, past the crooked gum tree and battered old tire swing I once loved so much. We continue past the empty, rusty cattle pens and into the outback. The sweet honey aroma of golden wattle trees fills the night air. This is just how I remember it. Before the great firestorm, rose everything to ashes, with the darkness of a new moon above. The magnificent celestial arc of the Milky Way rises above the domed silhouettes of the distant Kata Chuta peaks. "Is this where you grew up?" asks Bernsey. "Partly. This was Grandpa's station, and the ancestral homeland of Nana Kira. We rest under the canopy of a pale river red gum tree, where Nana used to tell my cousins and me Dreamtime stories. Here, by this creek." "Perfect," says Bernsey. "We were happy, weren't we? In Australia." His face is healed, younger, like from our R&D lab days back in Perth. His long, dark, matted hair is back, as are the memories of those raucous times. My cautious smile turns into a big grin. "Those were the best days. Remember the nights out we had with Eddie, Kathy, and the gang? They were proper banging, eh?" he says. "How about them drinking games we played? Like Moose and One Lifeboat." "What? All the games that you instigated? Not to mention those rude rugby chants you had us singing through the streets after closing time. We laugh until we cry. Then we just cry, mourning our long-lost friends, our families, and the lives we once had." Taking him by the hand, I broach the unspoken subject between us. "Bernsey, I'm sorry I never fully loved you, like you loved me." His longing eyes are too much to bear, so I look down and make marks in the dirt with a stick. "I just wish I felt those sorts of feelings. I wish I felt them for you." He leans over and kisses me gently on the cheek. I turn my head so our noses touch, and our eyes meet once more. My hands are on his muscular chest. He's not bodybuilder big, but lean, like a man who's spent years building machines with his hands and with me. He takes me in his arms once more. An alien sensation, an urge comes over me. So I kiss him back on the lips, fuller, deeper. A light breeze rustles the eucalyptus leaves overhead, and their minty, woody scent rains down upon us. Starlight dances upon the unhurried ebbs and flows of the burbling creek. A distant pair of boobook owls call to each other with mournful hoots, as if for the last time. Afterwards, we hold each other, gazing up at the night sky through the gaps in the canopy. We lay like this for a long while, putting off the inevitable, until Bernsey passes me the spade again. I'm ready now, so I get up and start digging. "Aren't you going to help?" "I'm dead, remember? Always an excuse. The ground is dry and hard, so Grandpa Handley helps instead. After a long while, just before the outback dawn breaks, Bernsey's shallow grave is ready. "Climb in then," I say. But Bernsey doesn't reply. His lifeless body, short-haired, blood-stained, and missing one eye, is already laid to rest. Scooping up the tear-spotted red earth, I find enough peace to bury my best friend and say goodbye. Just as I promised. Teddy bear, it's all your fault, you know. Picture it now. I was standing at that sparkling marble countertop, sorting through the mail, when I saw it. A thin envelope addressed to Joanne Roberts. It sat on my counter for hours while I cleaned up the kitchen, completed an online yoga workout, and took a hot shower. Young's Storage Company, in red letters as the header to the return address, gave me plenty of info to begin searching online. Final notice stamped in red across the front let me know what it was about. Still, I wanted to know the specifics. I must confess, noticed my first night in the house, there weren't any photos of you. Not even a wedding picture. All of the decor was masculine with sharp corners. No color. Somewhere, deep down, I knew he had erased you, but above that knowledge, I had known I was prepared to replace you. I put on my best little red sundress and made myself lunch, a turkey sandwich, side salad, Diet Coke. Did I purposefully knock over my drink? Onto the letter? No. All right, you caught me. I did. Why would my husband have a letter from a storage company addressed to you? It was easy to open the letter, but the only thing inside was a boring notice about you being behind on payments. How can a ghost be behind on payments? I asked him all those questions over dinner. He wrapped me up in kisses, saying, "I'll sort it all out tomorrow, my dear." I didn't want you to be surrounded by her memory. It seemed cruel, but I couldn't part myself entirely from her. She always had a storage unit to house her stuff, so I just kept it going. His beautiful eyes stared at the leftover gravy on his plate, creating a masterpiece with the mashed potatoes. Then he changed the topic and complimented my dress. Did I mention that Jonathan picked all my dresses for me? I remember that day so vividly, so fondly. We had been walking around the mall on our third date after gorging ourselves on soft pretzels and soda pop, when he pulled me into this shop with a pretty little poppy on the sign. We walked past the mini skirts in neon colors, past the intricately woven crop tops, and into the section at the back of the store where dresses hung on racks with signs reading "discount." All of the tags had little red stickers on them, marking their new price with the old price in block black print clearly beneath it, so you truly understood the bargain you were getting. Jonathan fingered through them, looked me up and down, and returned to the rack. I did the same, trying to laugh through the pain of explaining my dress size to a new guy. But Jonathan was an old hat at all of this. He was a widower, after all. Mom lost her mind when I told her I met a guy. You know how mothers can be. They just worry. I played it smart, though. I introduced Jonathan into the conversation, all casual, like he was a description of sunny weather. "I met a guy, Mom," I said, and her whole body shifted in the salon chair. It was such an abrupt change. Her pedicurist rushed to grab towels and mop up the oily, warm water she had sloshed everywhere. She demanded details. I told her everything I could. That Jonathan was a kind man, that he was incredibly musically talented, that he led the whole church every Sunday at the college mass in song. And, oh yeah, he's a widower. That detail shut her up for a bit. Mom begged me every week to come to church with her and Dad. I always had an excuse why I couldn't manage to go. Of course, the knowledge of Jonathan's existence somehow excused all the excuses. It made it all make sense. It was that final piece of the puzzle. But I could see in her eyes that the word widower frightened her. I watched it wash over her like a wave. It crashed into her heart. It scared her with all of its unspoken realities. An age gap that requires both hands to count, kids, baggage, survivor's guilt. Would I spend my whole life measuring up to another woman? I assured her that day that I could handle being courted by a widower. Jonathan, in his most charming state, was a master at courtship. After all, he had succeeded in the task at least once. He bought flowers, insisted on meeting Mom and Dad with wine in hand, and when he knelt down on one knee, the whole world held its breath, waiting for my answer. Of course, it was yes. It had to be yes. Be honest. Did you see the signs? We attended the mandatory meetings with our local priest, who already adored Jonathan, perhaps more than me. He even used our story in a Sunday homily about the importance of the vocation of marriage in the church. He said, "I was once approached by a parishioner, our beloved Jonathan, who said he was called to serve God with his voice, and I simply couldn't say no. Just remember, if God calls you to serve, there's nearly no way for me to deny the request." And we all looked to the rafters. I swear Jonathan winked at me. His mother taught him piano. His father taught him to pick a career worth having, which is how he had the gumption to endure college, law school, and life as a first-year associate. All of these milestones belong to the first Mrs. Roberts. Jonathan didn't bring her into the conversation until halfway through our first date. "Listen," he said, as he leaned across the metal table of the cafe. "I've done this before. I am serious about it. I want to get married again. I am called to marriage. I know you're young. I never want you feeling rushed into it. It's a serious commitment." I swear he stole those words right from my father's lips. Yet I smiled. I nodded. I promised I could hold it together, and if I squinted, I could block out the stands of gray in his jet black hair. He laughed when I told him that joke. Wouldn't you? Dad takes Jonathan out golfing every weekend, while Mom and I get our nails done. It started out as a habit when we were busy planning the wedding, but it turned into something more for them. They'd come back flushed and happy, giggling, like schoolgirls with secrets. They'd sweep Mom and I up in their arms, and we'd all go out to eat at a fancy restaurant. And Jonathan would pull out his black credit card with that devil-may-care grin before driving me back to the 4-bedroom house I shared with the girls from Bible study. He'd give me a peck on the cheek. I'd press my back up against the cold door and cross out another day on my calendar until graduation. My cap and gown came in a navy blue and gold. My diploma, 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears, rolled up into a single sheet of fancy parchment, eventually ended up in the back of the closet. But on that day, I knew that the diploma wasn't what I was walking out those auditorium doors with. No, I was walking out with my fiancé, whom my family adored, as my friends crowded me shouting, "5 months until you get your MRS degree. You would have adored our wedding day." It was so perfectly perfect in every way. Jonathan had told me that his first wedding was in mid-June, so we decided to have a winter wedding. October 20th. We chose a Friday so that we could advertise the event as an excuse for a long weekend. He was practiced at catering tasting and planning weather-based backup plans. It was easy to forget why he knew how to do it all. Jonathan's parents, longtime managers in the hospitality industry, ensured we had the very best rates for our guests and a beautiful hall for the reception. It all went to plan. The gorgeous, full Mass with readings Jonathan chose so as not to repeat any from his first wedding. The quick trip to the local hotel where we danced the night away, and the shuttle ride the next morning out to the airport for our honeymoon. I had wanted somewhere warm, but the first Mrs. Roberts insisted on Hawaii, so I settled for a weekend in a Colorado mountain town. We rented a 2-bedroom condo with a huge jetted tub. We spent most of the weekend there, but Jonathan had insisted we step out to do some shopping, to eat a good meal, and drink a good glass of wine. See, that's the thing about Jonathan. When he's got his eyes locked on yours, that enticing bite of elk steak balanced on the edge of his fork, you'd do anything for him. I know I did. Do you know how long it took for Sandy to tell me all about her? The first Mrs. Roberts? My brand spanking new mother-in-law took me out to lunch a month after the wedding. We ordered an appetizer and sparkling drinks, and she launched into the story of the ghost who haunted my new husband's heart. I didn't even know your name until that day. It was Joanne. I was told Joanne was very pretty. She was a blonde with a slim waist and easy laugh. She wasn't close to her parents, so she clung to her new in-laws, coming to Sandy for advice every weekend over a glass of wine, to Leonard for help with her car troubles, which seemed to pop up nearly twice a month. That Joanne, she was apparently spectacular. She was the girl next door, literally. Sandy set up play dates on the regular between her son and Joanne when they were in elementary too. Rescue Joanne from her tragic home life. Have I mentioned that the first time I visited Jonathan's parents, they still had the old prom photo of the king and queen proudly displayed on the fireplace mantel? In fact, Sandy walked me over to it before dessert was even served. Don't worry, it was Joanne's favorite, pineapple upside cake. Jonathan told a different story of the first Mrs. Roberts. Did you know he only ever calls you the first? According to him, she was complicated and exhausting and a challenge. He always frowned when he spoke of her and held his chin in his hands, cleared his throat, or took another sip of red wine. So I dropped it. Joanne was always the hot poker of our marriage. The demand came a week after that letter. Jonathan locked eyes with me over coffee, scrambled eggs, and toast. He forbid me from going into the garage, saying, "I can't afford the payments on the storage unit. I've moved a box of her stuff into the garage. I don't want you getting hurt." I nodded and avoided that place like the plague, except last Sunday, when I stood in front of the garage door for 20 minutes before using the spare key we kept hung on the hook, shaped like a moose's antlers, to unlock it. Jonathan's car was gone since he went to the office for the day. His latest trial was scheduled for the next day, so some final details simply needed arranging. He had made me breakfast. There was even a little note bearing his love. I had been perfectly happy eating my meal. It wasn't until I turned on the shower that I even considered the garage. See, I was comfy and cozy in a steamy shower when all the lights went out. I screamed from panic and called out Jonathan's name several times before I vaguely remembered that our breaker panel was in the garage. So I rinsed quickly, dried more quickly, and threw on some leggings before heading outside. Yes, I considered calling Jonathan. Of course I did. I even considered calling my father, or father-in-law, or mother-in-law, or knocking on the doors of some friendly neighbors. But I figured I was not just a 25-year-old, but a married woman, a wife. If I was ever to become the mother Jonathan needed me to be for our children, I had better be able to switch a breaker. The garage was musty, dusty, gross. Some faint lines from dust remained on our cement floor, where Jonathan always parked his car. The huge freezer he received as a wedding present from my father didn't even whir. I grimaced and examined my scene. There was my bike, the one with the big blue basket that Jonathan had surprised me with for my first birthday with him. There were all of his hunting outfits. He hated when I called them outfits, but what else would I call them? There was his splitting axe, his felling axe, and his hand axe hung up on the wall. There was a tent we bought for our first anniversary. It made me smile, and in the corner were 3 black totes with yellow lids piled high on against a wall. But I could still make out the silver of the breaker panel, so I marched over and gently shoved them to the side. I could clearly see 2 switches weren't like the others, so I clicked them over. The freezer began to whir to life. I was left with a satisfied grin. You would have been proud. I hope we would have been friends in another life. The big sister, little sister dynamic I always prayed for. When I went to slide the totes back, the top one fell. I was left to clean up old photo albums of Jonathan's childhood. I had seen all of them before, but still paused to stroke the giggling face of Jonathan on his 10th birthday. Around him, balloons decorated the backyard. A huge cake in the shape of a cowboy hat had lit candles, and of course, the present table was overflowing. His little lips puckered as he blew out the candles. I could practically hear the squeals of excited children. I went to pile the tote back up, but decided to slide the 2 remaining totes back into place first, so as not to have the 3rd one fall again. As they were tucked back into place, I noticed the middle one wasn't quite sealed shut, so I went to close it, and found I couldn't. I heard the sound of Jonathan's voice chastising me. If you're gonna do anything, do it right, or don't do it at all. So I took the yellow lid off. Before me were all of Joanne's dresses. I recognized their bright colors from Sandy's photos. I found my hands sifting through them without the full consent of my mind. They felt smooth like water between my fingers, and I held them up to my chest, twirling in a dusty garage all alone. At the bottom of the tote was one final dress and a teddy bear. The dress was white with a blue flower pattern. I grabbed it and grimaced with a pounding heart, noticing the stains of blood in the center of the bust line, the tear where the weapon made its entrance and exit. Any woman who has endured her monthly visitor knows the color of dried blood. There was no excuse that he could come up with. It wasn't paint or food. It was blood. The bear bore the same markings, and I fell to the garage floor. Jonathan found me hours later. He picked me up, tut-tutting as he went. He placed all of her dresses back in the box, but kept the teddy bear out. He sealed up the tote and helped me into the car. We drove in silence, the only light being from the full moon. Even if I had words, I don't know if my throat could make them. It had gone silent after the screaming and the crying. My exhausted eyes fluttered closed and didn't open until I could tell we had stopped, until I was certain we wouldn't start again, until I felt Jonathan's cool fingers stroking my hot cheek. He wore a sad face, like a clown without makeup. They start out so good, so kind, so loving. They promise to be good, but then they stop. They open letters not addressed to them, ask questions they shouldn't ask. He threw the new dress at me and returned minutes later to take me by one hand. He gave me the teddy for the other one. Our footsteps sounded so loud in the dried out grass and the silence of the graveyard. Until we arrived. I am the second Mrs. Roberts. I am standing at your grave in my very best black heels and little black dress. My sweaty hands clutch the brown teddy bear I found in an old dusty tote tucked in the corner of our old dusty garage. Jonathan smiles at me for the first time. He pulls out his gun. He leans in close. I close my eyes and taste his kiss one last time. Do flamethrowers belong in the library? We lose people all the time. It's just the nature of the job. What can you expect from a place full of nooks and crannies? People intentionally go to get lost in. I usually don't worry when I don't see someone for a while. But when it's been days since someone's checked out, it's usually a sign that I need to step in. I'm not doing this alone, thankfully. No librarian is ever truly alone, are they? I have help from the watchers and listeners of the shelves. Thanks to them, it usually doesn't take long to get the scent, if you know what I mean. However, today is one of the rare and unfortunate exceptions when my search has exceeded more than an hour, and an hour is pushing it. I've been searching and asking around for almost 6 hours, scouring shelves and listening for the telltale breathing. The watchers have their quadrants, so it's much like playing hot and cold. Bad news, one says, and my brain shivers in my skull, both from its existence and its statement. They crossed the tape, says the watcher, and I groan. Are you sure? My stomach still drops at the thought, even though I've been doing this a very long time. Long enough that I remember every book on every shelf better than my own child's face. But knowing a poor soul lost themselves beyond the tape, I grieve for them. The watcher doesn't speak, but generates an affirmative sensation. That means I have to backtrack to my desk for supplies. I thank them, asking that they send word ahead of my arrival. It's been a while, since I've had to go past the tape, which means it's been a while since I entered the broom closet. The helmet is dusty. It looks almost like it's from one of those old-fashioned scuba diving suits. It's not nearly so heavy, though. There's a bright lamp affixed to the front just above the visor, but it's as much of a hindrance as a help. While most of the time, those beyond the tape know not to bother me, some still get bored enough to try. And the lamp acts like a beacon. I don't blame them. It's what prisoners do. Find the weakest among them and test their mettle. I've got a sack full of unperishables, tinctures, aspirin, and a compass. Not like the kind you're used to, but would take too long to explain. And time is of the essence, so I'll let your imagination handle it from here. I sling the sack across my body and fasten my waist with a utility belt that would make a trust fund bat character with abandonment issues jealous. It's got floss, lighters, matches, and a few more tools that don't exist outside of the library. The last thing I grab is the flamethrower. This is where I should be very transparent with you. I'm not actually the librarian. I'm the librarian's assistant. I know, isn't that just your luck, right? Not to worry. I'm very good at using this thing, and it does the job nicely. Whatever job I may deem necessary at any particular moment. But the head librarian doesn't really need much of anything to ward off what lingers here. I don't know exactly where he is at the moment, nor do I want to know. If this were a real pickle, I would summon him. But while a rare occasion, it's not unusual in the scope of 1,000 years. After all, no one comes here without the intention, whether it's conscious or subconscious, to get lost. It's the nature of this place. But you know that, don't you? It's why you're here, after all. It doesn't take me long to find the tape, which is fortuitous. Sometimes it moves around, but the watchers and listeners kept a beat on it this time, so as to direct me. Yes, it is really dark. Yes, it's literal tape. Hazard tape. But that's almost like a beacon to the adventurous, isn't it? I think the library knows that. It's greedy, but it's also quite discerning in taste. In some circles, that means that I should extend congratulations to you. In others, I offer my sincerest sympathy. I hear my name and ignore it as I crawl through the crisscross of reflective strips. The tape moves not at random, by the way. It genuinely serves as a warning, whether it's gatekeeping sections currently under construction, in repair, or missing. I try not to, but I think that last one has something to do with where the head librarian went. Don't worry about it. My name is not important, so ineffectual that I've forgotten. I hear my name again as I begrudgingly turn on the lamp. Not a lot of help, just enough light to ensure I don't trip over anything or disturb the shelves. Many sleep here. I send off a warning shot from the flamethrower. showing I carry more light than just atop my appetizing head. The flash of flames sends things slithering. But most of those this close to the tape have never been very convicted by nature, so I'm not concerned. There are more listeners and less watchers past the tape, for obvious reasons. Thankfully, they say I don't have to go too far. I look down at the telling clicking sound to see rocks rolling. Some as big as my foot, and some as small as the tip of my thumb. The smaller ones move more easily, but all are rolling as if pulled toward a central point. I don't even need the compass, but I glance down at it one more time before stuffing it back into the sack. While I don't have to go too far, things are relative here. 10 steps may be 10,000. And so, even after only a few moments of exploring, I feel acute pressure jamming into my temples. My heart feels like it's being squeezed, and my vision blurs. My fingers tingle by the time I'm able to shake the aspirin into my mouth. I chew it, ignoring the sound of my name, my true name, the one only I can hear. You'll hear your own as well, if you stay here long enough. My vision clears, which just means the dark looks sharper, and I sweep another warning arc from the flamethrower for good measure. I do this as much because I love the sound as for protection. I also appreciate the warmth. It gets cold here, but in a strange way, which shouldn't surprise you at this point. It's cold, like how the first signs of spring show in the early morning dew that's only just melted. I can smell and taste the sweat on my upper lip. And it's cold. And then I hear it. A few or 1,000 steps later, the breathing sound I've been listening for. The pace of the rocks quickens, and my head is turned down, so the helmet light prevents me from tripping over or impeding their journey. A famous author once said, "All things serve the beam." And that's as true in this world as it is in the others. Except this beam, this beacon, is attached to our lost visitor. I can only hear the rocks, mumblings, and the breathing sound now. The smell is so musty and thick, like the air is full of sweat and dust, like I've stuck my head out the window during a heavily falling rain. If I think hard enough about it, soon I'll be drenched, so I don't. While the rocks are almost the perfect tell, and the listener's too corroborates the evidence, you can never be too sure. Only light can be sure. I take a match from the tiny box, snap it to life, and then blow it out. Tiny smoke tendrils curl and waft until they also follow the same flow as the rocks. Excellent. We've not been led astray. A few or 1,000 more steps, and the rocks are gathering down an aisle where the breathing is more like wheezing, like the desperate struggle to take in. Lo and behold, we found them. Poor thing. Judging by the state of her, she got lost early. She's likely been here for most of the day. The book covers her face, consuming her head like a kid on a particularly large popsicle. The pages flutter gently against her too white jaw. The papery quality of her skin and the wanting muscle mass show how little time was on our side. Not a moment to waste. I grab the book by the edges of both back and front covers. It's got most of her head inside at this point. Just her earlobes, hair, and edge of her jaw peek out from beneath the pages I now grip firmly. The wheezing turns into a moan that turns into a sob. Now, I say, and test the hold the book has on its victim. It's snug, too snug to yank like a leech. I need to treat it like a tick, making sure to get the head out. None of these are intended as puns, but it just happens after being surrounded by books and prose for so long. I draw one of the tiny vials strapped in my utility belt and pull the cork out. It smells like nothing to me, but I see the reaction immediately. Our half-consumed explorer moves a bit, her fingers mostly, and I hear a second, tinier moan beneath that of the books. I pour a small amount of the substance into the palm of my hand, and I smooth it gently down the spine of the book. It wails again, and so does the girl, both full of sorrow and reluctance. I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, so I turn at the hip, cock the flamethrower, and send off a very intentionally long tail of flames. When the feeling subsides, I shrug the weapon back over my shoulder. I use the backs of 2 knuckles to knock gently on the book cover. It's time to come back now. My apologies, I say, and I mean it. The book and the girl moan again, more hollowly, and I can feel the seal, the bond, splitting like a seam. I grip the book again, because these two are stubborn and have to pry them apart. The color and mass return beneath her skin, and though her eyes are open, they can't see anything. She'll be like that for a while. It's normal. She'll recover. I pour the remaining contents of the bottle down the part of her frazzled blonde hair. Tears fill the empty eyes and drip down her face. Her mouth presses into a thin white line and grimaces so intensely that the flesh folds in multiple layers at the corners of her mouth. Great pain. Even after 1,000 years, I still can't help but feel sorry. So I pull her burning head under my chin and rub circles into her back. I'm sorry, dear. I know you've been told otherwise, but this place is a prison, and that isn't your story. Yours is still being written, and the one which made you pretty promises is lying and jealous. One day, you, if the world is cruel, may yet have a place here. But it's not today. So let's go have a cup of tea, I tell her, as I've told many like her. I've gotten better at it over the years. I used to have to fight with them. Often, I'd give up and just keep them safe until the head librarian got back to talk them down. She finally lets out a weak, wheezing breath. I take advantage of the broken seam of her lips and pour a tincture down her throat. I don't even have to look anymore. I can just feel the specific melodies that make each tincture different. It helps that the one I need usually sings a bit louder as a courtesy, and it'll purr like a cat when I've touched my fingers to it. She chokes a bit, but her eyes start to clear. Good enough for now. The back of my neck has another sudden influx of goosebumps. We've overstayed our welcome. It's time to go. I put the book back on the shelf. I don't scold it, just allow its ache and frustration flow through me. I apologize, but there's no comfort I can give. My words and compassion are meaningless. I've noted the volume and will tell the head librarian. They might be able to soothe it back to sleep. I tap the metal bauble around my neck, and we're back at my desk. I drape the girl onto a nearby love seat that's seen better days, starting the kettle before heading to the broom closet to stash the emergency kit. She'll be fine. People like her, and you, always are. This place was made to help the wanderers and recklessly imaginative. Those who can't wrap their heads around the world the way it is, and can see the truth of magic between heartbeats and heartbreaks. And people like me and the head librarian, when they so choose to grace us with their presence, keep the place orderly and open for you. And we're here to help guide you back on track if you lose inspiration for your own story. It's the nature of the job, the library itself. What else can you expect from a place full of nooks and crannies that people choose to get lost in? Bedtime for Muriel. Cocoa, warm, not scalding, with pink marshmallows. And use a mug this time. I don't need to lose any more porcelain by knocking it off the table in the middle of the night. Use your brain, for fuck's sake. Yes, Muriel, said Angela, nodding as she tucked the hummingbird motif duvet around the octogenarian's neck. I'll be right back. You just get comfy and listen to Barry. Listen to Barry, the old woman with the silver hair scoffed, shuffling under the covers as if in criticism of the way she'd been positioned. Why do I have to listen to Barry? He's a wanker. Why do you always play him? Because you love Barry Manilow, Angela replied, making sure the personal alarm on Muriel McCandless's bedside table was in reach. And he's the only one who gets you to sleep. Don't tell me I'm wrong. We've experimented with Neil and Lionel, but you always end up awake all night. We're not doing that again. Barry fucking Manilow, said Muriel, flopping her arms against the mattress like a petulant child. Sounds like a cat being strangled. Absolute wanker. Angela couldn't suppress a giggle as she made her way across to the door, pausing to retrieve the tray laden with pill bottles and blister packs of various medications from the dresser beside it. And why is that horrible painting still on my wall? I told you, I don't like it. It gives me nightmares. For fuck's sake, put it in the bin." "I did put it in the bin," Angela said, pausing by the threshold to straighten said picture with her free hand. 10 times. "And you always tell me to put it back because it's your anchor, whatever that means. It's a fine painting anyway, one of your best. I have no idea what it is, but those slabs of overlapping color really do jump off the canvas. It's horrendous. I was stoned when I did it, like all the rest. And the idiot sheep lap them up. Pretentious twats with more money than sense, putting value on my neuroses. So true," Angela nodded, leaving the room. "But at least they made you a fortune. Now, don't nod off before I come back with your cocoa." She said the same thing every night, winking at the lady of the house, whose head propped up on 2 Hungarian goose-down pillows was glaring daggers. "I might have to drink it myself." "Don't you dare touch my butler's chocolate, young lady," Muriel called as she pulled the door shut. "It's Cadbury's we get for you, and you better fucking drink it." With the thick slab of mahogany secured in the doorframe, Muriel's shrill voice faded, and Angela's giggle turned to a chuckle as she made her way downstairs. Miserable Muriel. Moaning Muriel. Malicious Muriel, but also her Muriel, and despite her contrariness, she loved her. Nobody could put up with her for long. Not her husband, who she said passed away to escape her. Not her kids, who she said found careers in faraway countries to avoid having to visit, which was good for Angela, who was used to dealing with foul-mouthed, cantankerous old biddies, having looked after her mother for years. It meant she got the gig of a lifetime as a live-in nurse and maid to a world-renowned, reclusive, abstract artist, free food and board, the run of a manor on private land in Wexford, surrounded by nature. What more could a 30-year-old carer of the elderly, sick of working endless shifts in soulless hospitals, and keen to fulfill her ambition of providing one-on-one personal caregiving, ask for, other than a cup of butler's chocolate before bed? Reaching the bottom of the stairs and turning towards the kitchen, she fished her phone from her pocket to check the notification she'd felt buzz in some minutes before. WhatsApp from Freddie. "I'm here. Is the cranky old bitch asleep yet?" Shaking her head, Angela used her thumb to type. Not a bitch. Eccentric. And no, not yet. Making her chocolate. Out soon. Hope the pizza's ordered. Phone back in pocket. She made her way down a hall lined with photos, featuring everything but family, friends, and Muriel's art. Because she had no friends, hated her family, and her art terrified her. Shouldering her way through another thick door into the kitchen. The back door stood open, and it was freezing. The chill October temperatures having made themselves at home. "What the hell?" said Angela, placing the tray on the marble-topped kitchen island. "Freddie, I told you, you can't come into the main house. You'll get me fired. She couldn't see Freddie, but she knew she was there because the door had definitely been shut, and she was the only other person with access to the property. Something Muriel had reluctantly agreed to, on the proviso that her boyfriend only came over between 9 and 10 on weekends. Rules, of course, were made to be broken, and it was now 9:30 on Wednesday, with a night of pizza, beer, and Love Island catch-ups to look forward to. And were you raised in a barn? God, Freddie, close the door at least. As she hurried to shut out the cold, she caught a glimpse of movement by the fireplace and tensed herself, waiting for Frederica to wrap her arms around her and lift her off the floor, spin her around, and kiss her. She giggled in anticipation. Just be quiet, okay? Her music's on, but I swear she has a sixth sense. She always seems to know when. Raquel. The odd-sounding words were guttural, rasping, nails on chalkboard jarring, and Angela felt her blood run cold as the door clicked into place, and she smelt something rotten. Freddie? She knew it wasn't Freddie, but she turned anyway, to stare in horror at the bulbous, slug-skinned thing lurching towards her. A dozen yellow eyes in a mantis-like head, blood dribbling from fleshy mandibles as it swung one of many barb-covered tentacles at her head, slamming her hard to the floor. Muriel, because you like Barry Manilow. Sarcastic bitch. I do in my shite. Muriel had thrown off her duvet and swung her spindly legs off the mattress, slipped her bony feet into fluffy slippers, and wobbled to the dresser, where her phone was plugged in to charge, and from which the odious lyrics of Copacabana were oozing. Awful, Muriel spat, snatching up the phone to swipe at its screen with a withered finger. Fucking awful. How do I get George on this thing? Her efforts to navigate the Spotify home screen were interrupted when her eyes went to the canvas over the dresser, causing her to shiver and moan. Awful, she said again, dropping the phone as Barry sang. She lost her youth, and she lost her Tony. Now she's lost her mind. Told her to put it in the bin. Stupid bitch never listens. I've a mind to send her packing. Her and that long-haired boyfriend of hers. Dresses like a girl. Whatever happened to... She'd tugged the painting off the wall, shuffled to the door, pulled it open, and was about to fling the canvas out when she heard something stumble on the stairs, but only after being staggered by the smell of rotten fruit or vegetables, a smell that activated in her head a buried memory, like the image on the canvas, which suddenly flared to life in her mind's eye. She was led by the hand from the tent in the forest to the light in the night, by a shadow, looking back for help, seeing her father in his bag by the campfire, shouting, "Daddy!" We're not alone." To no response, shivering in her nightdress, pine needles stabbing her bare feet, when she looked forward again, in response to the shadow telling her its name, she was entering the light and finding it filled with an indescribable array of frightening objects, machines and devices, glowing in bright colors. A chair, which she was placed into, to be pushed towards a hulking monster that reached dozens of wriggling tentacles towards her, making her scream. Arnold?" She surprised herself by muttering, as her knees gave out and she collapsed, landing with her head outside her door, turned towards the source of the smell, towards the glistening black thing that was lurching up the stairs on lumpy legs, like a bipedal squid out of water, black as tar, drooling blood, tentacles whipping in the air. "Arnold," she said again, though she didn't know why, just that the name had entered her head when she recognized the odor, an odor she'd smelled only once in her life and forgotten, an odor she remembered now as memories of that night in June 41 exploded in her mind like Luftwaffe bombs. The night she wandered off during a camping trip with her family and got lost in the woods for 3 days. Unknown colors, unidentifiable shapes, morphing, mutating, surging around her like waves, and amongst them, yellow eyes, drooling pincers, tentacles in her mouth, wriggling deep, filling her throat. "Are you Arnold?" Muriel asked, pushing herself up to kneeling, watching the monster approach. "Did you take me away?" The terrifying beast of many tentacles reached the top of the stairs, brought its insectile head level with hers, narrowed its sulfur yellow eyes. Words that sounded like crotchet, verakel came from its blood-smeared mandibles, and Muriel straightened in defiance, remembering the sounds, remembering the smell, remembering it. "Did you take me?" she demanded, as a long-sought understanding of why she hurt the way she hurt, and dreamt the things she dreamt, and channeled the visions she was plagued with finally materialized. "You filthy alien pervert!" The creature drew itself up to full height, spread its pincers wide, and issued an ear-splitting shriek that sprayed droplets of blood on Muriel's face. "You stole my life!" The fiery 87-year-old spat, struggling to her feet as the monster hissed. "You filled me with hate and anger. Tusak verakel," it said, stepping closer, swinging its tentacles back to Mu'il. It was Angela, appearing on the monster's back, wrapping her arms around its neck, her face a mask of horror, bloody and torn, flap of skin dangling from one cheek, lips burst, eyes swollen, glaring. "One," she forced past mangled tongue. "Call Porice." The alien monster thing shrieked and thrashed and slammed itself into the wall, reaching up and back, coiling tentacles around Angela's head. Muriel, snapped from the fugue-like state she'd drifted into by Angela's appearance, felt delayed panic race through her and turned, tottered back into her room, swung the door shut, and reached for her phone, still connected to its charging cable on the dresser. "I've been alive forever," Barry crooned, "and I wrote the very first song." For the second time in as many minutes, the old lady's trembling hands gathered up the phone, then dropped it again as the door burst open. An airborne, headless Angela flying through, slamming into Muriel, and knocking them both to the floor. "Stupid bitch," she thought, propping herself up on her elbows, feeling a heavy weight on her legs, knowing without looking it was Angela. Fat lot of good she was. Should have got rid of her ages ago. Probably let that bastard get in while she was canoodling with... Wait, Arnold? Was that really Arnold? I remember him taking my hand while I peed. Before she could finish the thought, the window over her bed exploded, and millions of shards of razor-sharp glass filled the room, lacerating her arms, legs, and face. Arnold. When the alert came through, he was 18 parsecs away on Vestron 7, helping to quell an uprising organized by the anarchic Micropian Party in advance of upcoming elections, and he cursed himself for falling for the ploy. Although he'd been transferred to the president's personal security division, the rebel leader, Pleekvar, knew he wouldn't be able to resist returning to his homeworld to help the ground troops subdue the dissidents. He had knowledge of the land that would prove invaluable to their efforts, so it wasn't a stretch to predict what he would do when he heard of the unrest. Anti-libertarian, micropian scum tarnishing his beautiful Vestropolis? Unthinkable. Arnold Edibold couldn't stand by while such a violation occurred, and he hadn't. But by abandoning his post to rejoin his regiment, he'd left his asset unguarded and given Pleekvar an opportunity to damage Turanian unity. He would be banished to the frozen wastes for such an indiscretion. So as soon as he received news of the security breach from the capital, he knew what machinations were afoot and commandeered a starhopper to take him from Vestron to Earth. A trip through the inner cosmos that normally took several hours, but he accomplished in one as he raced to avert disaster, a feat he was sure he had failed when he teleported down to the grounds of the manor and discovered the remains of a human female scattered across the lawn. "I'm too late," was his first thought. "We will lose the elections. The anarchists will seize power. The Turanian nation will fall, and I will live out my days on an ice-cold rock near Setrin, where his second, third, fourth, and fifth." Then he heard sounds of commotion from a room on the second floor and realized he still had a chance. He raced to the wall, used his tentacles to climb it, eyes narrowing into slits as he prepared for battle, reaching the window and smashing through into the sleeping quarters of the one he'd sworn to protect. Muriel McCandless, now much older than she'd been when he left his post 2 days before. 14 years older, to be precise. She was on the floor, under a corpse, covering her head with twig-like arms as glass rained down around her. Arnold landed on a pink platform under the window as the assassin pounced into the room, placed a foot on the small of Muriel's back, snaked its tentacles down towards her head. It glared at him while it coiled its limbs around her neck. "Cratchit, Verakel," it snarled, and Arnold looked on in defeat, knowing he couldn't do anything before the rebel ripped the head off the human. They'd hacked the Capitol's data files. They'd found who they were looking for. They'd determined her location and knew they had time to take her out. They'd put a plan in motion, and it had worked. They were seconds away from causing an election upset. Unless the president would not be happy. But there was only one thing he could do. "Daddy, we're not alone," he said in perfect English, mimicking the voice of the 5-year-old girl in the woods. The only thing she'd said beyond screaming when he took her from her family 2 weeks before. The words they'd recorded and used, buried in her subconscious as a trigger to put her mind in a coma when needed. Beneath the rebel's foot, Muriel's body contorted, spine snapping, head twisting, neck breaking, eyes staring up at Arnold. Fuck you, Arnold," she said. "You evil bastard." Her final word trailed off as her head exploded, and from the hole in her neck came Vera Kell, howling as she grew from shrunken embryo to full-size adult in a matter of moments. The rebel fell back, tentacles around the emerging president, becoming entangled with hers as they grew from her torso. It was trapped, and it hissed, and it roared, watching Vera Kell's head fully form, her eyes blink open and stare. It took her a second to get her bearings, but once she had, she didn't wait, opening a second vertical mouth in her throat and spraying a jet of corrosive acid from her guts, an act only females of the Turanian race could perform, an act Arnold could not watch. He stared at his feet while the anarchist screamed at the unstable pink slab he was standing on, and the earthbird illustrated puffy material, balled up at its end. Pretty, he thought. Looks soft. Inviting. Why don't we have such niceties on Arnold, the president said, snapping him to attention and bringing his gaze back up, avoiding the steaming mass of goo by the door. "Yes, ma'am. What transpired today? Why the intrusion?" Anarchists ma'am. Pleekvar hacked the capital's databanks, found out you were vacationing on Earth in a human host with me watching over, saw it as a chance to take you out of the running for re-election, initiated an uprising on Vestron 7 to lure me away. Sadly, I fell for it, thought they could use a local to help. Then he sent someone to eliminate you. I see. But you found out? Capital agents got wind of it and alerted me. I returned at once, but too late to do anything other than wake you. I apologize, ma'am. Vera Kell grunted, looking around the room. Fuck, she said, in her characteristic, crude way. Ma'am, couldn't even get 2 shitting weeks to myself before starting on the campaign trail. This was a good life, too. Fun, but interrupted right before the end. What bullshit. Human passings are the best fucking bits. Sorry, ma'am. Don't apologize. I'm alive, aren't I? Thanks to you. Did you say that asshole Pleekvar orchestrated a rebellion on your homeworld? Yes, ma'am. Is it quelled? No, ma'am. I had to leave before... Then what are we fucking waiting for? You have a hopper, I presume? Let's get back to it. I'm in the mood for melting more anarchists. And then I'm going to kick the living shit out of Pleekvar. And so, exiting a crime scene the likes of which had never before been witnessed, Vera Kell and R. Nold left Manilow behind, singing, "We'll just go on burning bright somewhere in the night." Collision. Dices drove west, obeying the speed limit, and he trembled as he tried to light his 7th cigarette of the morning. His lips tingled around the filter. He smelled his own stale breath, captured in the palm he cupped around the lighter's weak flame. He swallowed against the sticky thudding of the pulse that beat too high in his throat. The cigarette caught the flame and smoldered. Dices cracked his window, and the smoke that drifted up to burn his eyes was sucked away into the cold morning. He coasted under yet another green light. He'd encountered only green lights, insistent go, 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 signals from the universe. Heavy slugs crept in his bowels. He sucked greedily at his cigarette, crossing his eyes to watch the ember glow. Flecks of ash dusted his lap. Another green light. Dices flicked a quick gaze to the dashboard clock, cursing his good luck, slowing down, willing the minutes to move. He was running early for his appointment. So many factors having contributed to the unwelcome streamlining of his journey. He still hadn't gotten used to the lack of traffic on the Rue. Everyone took the new Magway now. The perimeter gates of his settle block had been open already, and he hadn't needed to wait for security to buzz him through. The sobriety checkpoint had been unmanned. His trip had taken 10 minutes, fewer than he'd planned. Another green light. The car's rusted axle scraped a deep pothole in the middle of the intersection. Dices thought about pulling over to kill time, But he knew if he stopped the car, he would not be able to start it again. He inhaled a huge, head-spinning drag of smoke and opened the window a bit more. His hand shook as he poked the tip of the cigarette out the window to tap its growing column of ash onto the street. A nervous tremor rippled through him, and the stick fell from his nicotine-stained fingers. He fumbled instinctively, knocking his knuckles against the glass, and the drafting air pressure caught the cigarette and blew it back at him. He didn't see where it landed. The car was full of kindling, fast food wrappers, flammable with grease, sun-brittled paper, dirty clothes. He imagined the back seat catching fire and tried to reach behind him, patting, feeling for the errant ember, grimacing at the green light visible above the next empty intersection. Dices felt a huge, hot bug bite his left elbow and reacted by slamming his foot against the gas pedal. He yelped and smacked the sleeve his cigarette had fallen into. It burned as he ground it into his skin. The car veered. He shook his sleeve out, flinging the still smoldering cigarette out of his cuff, and made to stamp it out on the floor mat, wincing and checking the time, and still accelerating under the last green light. And when the flustered panic retreated beneath his original anxiety, he finally looked back at the road, just in time to watch a man disappear under the front of his car. He braked, far too late, long after being gently jostled by two soft thumps below him. Dices never got to find out if he possessed enough cowardice to pull off a hit and run. The pitchy squeal of badly maintained brakes and the crash of chassis on curb alerted supplicants of the Tor Vahgar. They streamed out of their temple to investigate, their white ceremonial robes billowing in the morning wind. Dices sat still, his hands locked in grip around the wheel, as if he meant to strangle it. He wished he could let go and light a cigarette, but that would mean he'd next have to open the door, step into the morning, and face the red, squeezed tube of a body on the road behind him. Would it be wet, steaming in the frigid air? Was his car heavy enough to squelch organs from orifice? Or would he find less messy, blunt force trauma? He pictured dirty tire tracks on a crushed throat. Might the man still be alive? It was that thought that loosened his grip and allowed him to move, sludgy slow, on shock cocooning autopilot. He reached for his cigarettes and felt a flood of relief when he found that 2 smokes remained in the worry-crumpled package. His hands were steady when he lit one. He got out of the car and watched the white robes flock to the stillness in the street. A woman stood over the body and cried, while another tapped off a message on her handheld. A man knelt, the pristine hem of his robe drawing road dust up through fabric capillaries. He reached for the body with tentative, gentle fingers. They all saw the gun at the same time. It had been knocked several feet from the dead man. A scratched-up, bootleg particle cannon. Tech from an old empire, illegal and devastating, primed, and still pointing at the temple of Tor Vagar. Dices thought ridiculously of that old game. Spin the bottle, he sat on the curb and smoked, not wanting to bother the Vahgarans with his stink, not wanting to yellow their robes with his residue. Sirens wailed, melancholy and distant, approaching via the magway. The crying woman ran back toward the temple, calling a name in an alien language as she flitted inside. Barana! Realization of their narrowly escaped victimhood widened the eyes of the Vahgarans on the street. Shock ran through them like a contagion, vulnerability dawning like a weak sunrise. They stepped away from the body, their eyes on the gun, as if it might come to life and shoot them on its own. More Vahgarans exited the temple, joining the congregation that formed in the road, keeping a safe distance from the downed would-be gunmen. They discussed in hushed voices, asked shrill questions of each other, and gradually their attentions diverted to the silent, smoking man sitting on the curb by his ruined car. The man with the dirty hem approached Dices and crouched. "Sir," the Vahgaran said. "Sir, are you all right? Are you injured?" Dices blew smoke away from the man's intent, searching face. "Don't think so. Don't think you're all right. Or don't think you're injured." Dices blinked. "Both, I guess." He wanted to laugh. He'd killed a man. He would not be making his appointment. "He saved us!" A woman rushed over, the one with her hand held out, the one who'd presumably summoned the emergency vehicles that were now speeding down the magway's off-ramp onto the Rue. Blue and red lights spun halos in the morning fog around them. Sirens muffled the increasingly frantic voices of the Vahgarans as their attentions closed in on Dices. He stubbed his cigarette out on the concrete and pocketed the butt. He didn't want to litter in front of these pristine, holy people. Saviors have to keep up appearances, he thought. Admiration was foreign to Dices, and at first he mistook it for suspicion. When the responding officers were finally able to pry him away from the Vahgaran, the media, and the tangle of emergency vehicles, they took him to the police station and parked him in an interrogation room. They gave him a cup of hot chocolate. They shook his hand. Short, neatly groomed Officer Kayata led him outside to smoke when he requested it, though she wrinkled her nose while she waited for him to finish. He caught a glint at her throat, noticing the stylized Tor Vahgaran saucer pendant she wore on a delicate chain, an icon of worship, veneration of the alien hands that cradled Earth, mending it from its human-inflicted wounds. "You should really stop that," she said, squinting her eyes against the smoke as he exhaled. "It stinks. They're my lungs, and I'll ruin them if I want to," he thought. He narrowed his eyes at her pendant. "Not that you'd understand." Officer Kayata took a call on her handheld. walking a few yards away as Dices blew smoke into the still cold early afternoon sky. "This is about to get a lot bigger," she warned him as she strode back to him, her call concluded. A Tor Vahgar ambassador was supposed to be at that temple today. She maintained her professional demeanor, but Dices didn't miss the sparkling hint of tears at the corners of her eyes. Back in the interrogation room, Dices sat on his hands to both hide their trembling and warm them up. Officer Kayata brought him another hot chocolate and sat primly in the metal chair across the table from Dices. Fluorescent lights clicked above, probing and harshly bright, the better to scrutinize you with. This is just a formality. Officer Boskov, gruff and bushily mustached, shuffled incident reports and witness statements on the metal table. "You're not in any trouble. We just want to get our facts straight. As you can imagine, the entire Vahgaran community stands behind you. You told him about the ambassador?" Officer Kayata nodded. "They've offered their best lawyers, but I don't think you'll need them. They've also set up a donation hotline." Dices clenched his stomach against the tide of bile that threatened to rise. He wanted a cigarette, but his pack was empty. He felt the deprived addict's headache peeking around the corner, waiting to ambush. Officer Boskov's voice took on a serious tone, and he asked the question Dices had been dreading. "Where were you headed when you saw the gunman?" Dices swallowed, pausing for a moment too long. "Going to the doctor. My lungs," he said, freeing a hand unconsciously to reach for the empty pack of cigarettes in his pocket. He thumped a tightly closed fist on his chest. He thought a cough might be too much, too performative. "Will your doctor verify that?" Boskov clicked a pen, made a note. "I was hoping they'd see me as a walk-in. I was coughing up blood last night." "I see," Boskov said. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his mustache as he regarded Dices. "Now, I know this might be hard to talk about, and you're probably still in a bit of shock, but I need you to describe what happened again, with all the detail you can remember. Start with when you first saw the man on the street. What caught your attention? And what made you act?" "Again," he said, his eyebrows raised with kind concern. "You aren't in trouble. Fact is, you're a hero whether you see yourself as one or not yet. You prevented what could have been an absolute massacre. That gun was modded and energized to gar and back. You saved a lot of lives. But we need to get everything on record." Officer Kayata twisted the Tor Vahgar pendant she wore, her expression thoughtful, thankful. Dices tried to keep from hyperventilating. He cleared his throat. He spun his tail. He'd seen a furtive, suspicious man crossing the street, with Hunter's eyes narrowed and predatory. A gun, hefted and steady, striding with obvious, murderous intent toward the temple. Dices told the officers how he'd accelerated without hesitation, careening for the terrorist, without fear for his own life, steering to kill and damn the consequences. It was the right thing to do. He had been out of his body. Righteous instinct taking over. And all he'd felt was relief when the man's rampage was aborted under his balding tires. He'd almost convinced himself the story was true, until he found himself absent-mindedly scratching the blister on his left elbow. Vivette, the Va-Garan PR representative, was a harried woman with 2 briefcases and a shaved head. She wore glasses and chewed gum like it fueled her, and her frantic productivity agitated and exhausted Dices. He tried to pay attention to the several trains of thought she conducted. Tor Barana will want to join you for some press conferences, she said, typing a proposed media circuit schedule on a shiny laptop. She checked the official Va-Garan forums. 4 independent congregations set up charity pools to cover any legal expenses. Gifts are coming in from all over the place. Is there any weird stuff about you online that I should know about? I don't think so, Dices said. He sipped tepid coffee and forced himself to take a bite of his rubbery omelet. Vivette had wanted to meet him at his home, to make you feel more comfortable and for privacy, she'd said. But he suspected she'd really wanted to scope out his situation and avert any potential PR crises before publicly canonizing him into the Va-Garan sainthood. He'd refused, citing embarrassment about his messy bachelor's apartment. She'd looked at him suspiciously, but had caved and met him at a cafe downtown. Time was of the essence for a story like this, she said. Already his face was plastered across screens and papers, his full name emblazoned in impact font under epithets like the hero of New Hartford and a savior's savior. Vivette checked a text message on her handheld, an email on her laptop, a notification on her watch. Information about Dices assaulted her while he watched, tapping a nicotine withdrawal beat on the table with his fingertips. Oh, look, the Massippi branch got you a new car. She turned the laptop around and showed Dices a photo of grateful, white-robed zealots smiling next to a state-of-the-art mag car. Dices sneered. He hated those identity-stripped husks of bland futurism. You don't like it? She asked, catching his expression before looking down to respond to another text message. If I'd had one of those today, I wouldn't have been there to run down Corsican, Trent Corsican, the other face of the day. The lone terrorist with a grudge against the benevolent aliens and their worshippers. A regressivist with a raided apartment full of heretical literature and MacGyvered weapons. Dices couldn't picture the man's face as having belonged to the body he'd smeared on the road. The visage and the corpse felt like 2 different men. Dices felt like 2 men as well. The one who'd been anxious about an appointment earlier, and the paragon of righteous bravery he'd become. He needed to get home. He had to clean his apartment. It is a bit ironic, isn't it? The Tor Vagar give us magtech, and then you go and save them with that pollution machine relic. Oh, your Reward a Hero fund is up to 17 million credits, Vivette said with an uncharacteristic awe. Wow, I'll say. She narrowed her eyes. How do you feel about joining a Vahgaran chapter? It's a great organization, and it would look great. Dices clenched his teeth. I guess I could do that, he said, thinking of 17 million credits. He felt a piece of his principles snap off inside him. Great. A conversion might seem pandering if we do it too soon. She checked her calendar for a good baptism date. Okay. He really needed to get home to clean, and you're going to need to stop smoking. Vivette gave him a disappointed mother's face. It's terrible optics, and it smells awful, and it's bad for me. I know, Dices thought, and he'd never wanted a cigarette more. He pictured himself smoking in his new mag car. The two versions of himself collided. The rebel and the hypocrite. Is there anything so sacred as a being's right to self-destruct? Dices wondered as he finally lit a cigarette. The smoke collected in the dark room, his comforting blanket of reckless autonomy. Dices had waited for the mag cab to pull away before unlocking the door of his apartment. He'd wondered how many more times he'd go through that familiar motion. He was now the owner of 60 million credits and could already taste the fresh air of a new settle block. A skyscraping penthouse with windows that opened to let in the cleanest clouds. It was dark, the grimy settle block quiet, secured for the night against the scavenger sects. Dices had slipped inside the apartment, already feeling estranged from it, a trespasser, and he'd locked the door behind him quickly. He'd gone straight for his stash of smokes, navigating the clutter without needing to turn on a light. He sat now on a ratty couch full of cigarette burns. He touched the circle on his elbow. "We match," he said out loud, and laughed. He thought of the new couch he'd buy. Something soft, pillowy, something not pulled from a dumpster, something he might try to fall asleep on without a lit cigarette between his fingers. Maybe it would be nice to live in the world the Tor Vagar race was trying to build. Dices exhaled, and he couldn't see the smoke in the darkness. He never felt the drags as effectively when he couldn't see the evidence of them. He saw emissions as proof of life. Was a sterile world a lived-in world? He'd believed destruction was inevitable, and more insidious if hidden. He coughed. It was too dark to see any blood. Maybe it was good he'd missed his appointment. He imagined his beautiful, freshly painted penthouse again. Then he thought of its opposite. A run-down safe house in a derelict settle block across town. sitting empty. He hadn't had a chance to give the house's rusted key to Corsican. It was still nestled in his pocket, alongside a pamphlet containing encrypted contact numbers, meeting coordinates, and credit stash codes. He'd lusted after the assassination bounty before, but now it seemed pathetic. An insult, hardly enough to rise from ashes with. A getaway driver was supposed to provide a new life, but not for themselves. He wondered if the Tor Vahagar ever felt that way, rerouting a civilization from its path of shit, finding themselves gods when they finished. Sorry, brother in cause. Dices raised a fresh cigarette in salute. To new lives, he lit the cigarette, wondering if it would be his last, and used the same flame to burn the regressivist pamphlet, the final petition of the beast. I trust that your patience and historically proven aptitude for distilling the truth of events from the muddled fog of contentious viewpoints will inhibit you from leaping to a firm and resolute condemnation of my actions until you hear me out to the full. Let us see if I cannot, in time, convince you of my benevolence by offering another perspective on the events which preceded my downfall, and which led me to assume this sorrowful state in which you now observe me. A perspective which, I hasten to warn you, runs contrary on many points to those you have, no doubt, already encountered. In exchange for your borrowed time, I promise to inform you of what really happened regarding a topic we can agree truly matters: the well-being of none other than my human host. The rumors you have heard are true. I am soldered by mechanisms far beyond the understanding of the human sciences, in an intimate manner, to the psychological tendencies of the human mind. I must again plead with you to discard your prescribed opinions regarding this arrangement of living. Any beast or person misunderstood will stand by me, and perhaps you also will join us in testifying that the misunderstood are always critiqued with unwarranted harshness. I have borne the most hideous names hurled at me by those who fear and misunderstand of my role. I have gone by many disparaging titles throughout history, and am only too aware of the multitude of unsavory images attached to the notion of a parasitic relationship. May I suggest as a substitute for this baseless hatred the fondness of a pet for its owner? After all, I do more than leech. Like your beloved animal companions, I am also capable of altering the mood of my host, as you shall soon see. My host was a young boy when I transferred myself from his parents' minds to his. His psychological foundations had been set years before, and I arrived to find a habitat much to my liking. Between the folds of his thoughts, I made myself a home. I had left a part of me behind, of course, in the minds of the parents. Their family had served me for generations, and it was a light task for one as skilled as I in the art of suggestion, and in possession of such intimate knowledge of their inner workings to fan the mother's insecurities, just so that, while remaining completely imperceptible to their untrained eye, my little whispers achieved nothing short of the legal separation of the boy's parents. I then secured my spot in the boy's mind by magnifying his sense of responsibility for his parents' misery. Thenceforward, the slightest reminder that he was unlovable had him wriggling deliciously in my grasp. It was thus, with my claws sunk deep into his skull, that I ushered him into high school. His emotional trajectory was the most promising of all his dear family members yet. Not a single friend he made the first month of school. The very weight of me crumpled his posture as he wandered, friendless, through the halls. I steered his mood between the scylla of an overly morose disposition, certain to be noticed by peers and trigger the arrival of help in the form of a school counselor or therapist, and the Charybdis of an optimism that would grant him the strength to shrug me off. I would have achieved this ideal flawlessly were it not for that damned girl who transferred to his school and was placed catastrophically in the seat across from my host. Were she my charge, I would have doubled down on her insecurities at the first sign of that cheerful, infectious laugh and blasphemously pristine, consistent mood. If not out of a sense of duty to myself, then out of respect for my colleagues, who work so hard to keep precisely her sort of energy away from the vicinity of our hosts. Before the week was out, the boy was going home, smiling to himself at the memory of their last conversation. Thankfully, I had conditioned him in preparation for such catastrophes. The reminder of the tension that awaited him at home when he stepped off the bus was enough to lull his mind back to its usual state of a miserable hibernation. Yet I knew this girl was no patch of sun or tasty treat. She was here to stay. It frightened me how deftly she slipped under my nose. After generations of thankless, uphill labor, I was faced with the prospect of relinquishing all in submission to her smile. The memory of the warm undertones that bubbled up from deep within the boy at the memory of her smile causes me still to shudder. I irked him. I belittled him. I downright scolded him in my best imitation of his father's voice for his cheek. You can imagine, then, my shock when he steeled his nerve and neglected to drink from the sweet stream of self-pity I offered him. He told me himself that this girl was worth the pain, a revelation that gave me a most unpleasant shock. For centuries, my strategy had been to capitalize on the self-pity of my hosts by maintaining their focus entirely and crushingly on themselves. The bitterness this tactic unfailingly produces kept his parents under my thumb until their separation. I expected the same trap would ensnare their child also. But my suggestions fell suddenly on deaf ears. He had a drive to know this girl, and his deep-set belief that he was essentially unloved and unlovable did nothing to curb his momentum. In all my carefully executed precautions, I had not foreseen his sexual drive would rear its head in this manner. I chastise myself for the mistake. Had I studied more carefully the behavioral patterns of his father, molded my contraptions to better accommodate the boy's hereditary quirks, I might have prevented this disaster from transferring. As it stands, the animal drive to reproduce is, like me, powerful and resilient, and cannot be permanently subdued, only temporarily diminished. He surprised even himself, I think, at his boldness and forwardness, looking back on what he did next. During a break in class came the briefest of silences, pregnant with the potential for shadow-shattering community. And then he spoke, and at that moment I perceived within myself a distinct and piercing horror that stemmed from the sudden realization that my source of life had suddenly begun to slip away, like sand. No, like water, between my sharpened claws. The boy and the girl talked on stools in the back of the classroom, opposite the wide windows, with the morning sun on their faces. His willingness to reveal his most intimate thoughts, including those I had pointedly enforced on him to be the cause of his unlovableness, to this girl, a near total stranger to him, unknown less than a week ago, it frightened me. So I bit him hard on the tip of his ear. It was too risky, you see, to allow a conversation of that nature to continue. They might have begun to discuss me, the boy's negative self-talk, and he might have let the cat out of the bag and deprived me of the strength that secrecy affords. He was still grimacing from the pinch of the memory of some past embarrassment when the teacher resumed class. But the girl looked worryingly at him, and I at her, for I knew the fight was far from won. Before I continue, I feel compelled to address my apparent neglect of the rules. You must understand, taking into account the urgency of my case, why it was necessary for me to inflict more than merely psychological torment on my host. Consider the goal I had to achieve. If the result of my admittedly brash action was the immediate embarrassment, the later regret, and the plummeted social confidence of my host, 3 dimensions firmly underneath my jurisdiction, can the rules really be said to have been abandoned? Even so, I trust you to keep the details of my misstep within the sphere of your knowledge, and mine only. That afternoon, the boy flopped onto bed, and I robotically conjured his usual evening diet of social comparison and self-loathing that bites so poignantly on the teenage psyche. I had just settled in for a mellow evening of brooding and isolation when the boy received a friend request from the girl. Soon they were volleying messages happily like two ducks in a pond. I spewed my most horrid concoction of degrading insults in his ear, but the boy took even my most clever and piercing threats and told them to her verbatim as I had whispered them to him. The stupid boy believed my work to be a product of his own imagination, but the untruth of his utterances was instantly checked by the girl, and the secret of my existence was out. I felt the shame and secrecy drain from his mind like the contents of a filthy toilet, all at once unclogged. You would have screamed too if you had been there. Your life's work transformed in an instant to shining acceptance and relief. She urged him to speak with the school counselor on Monday and walked him down to the counseling office herself when I attempted to undermine the urgency of his plight. I found us face to face with my old host, whose emotions I could not comprehend nearly as well from this side of his face. The counselor did not return my fiery gaze, although he noticed me the moment we stepped into his office, but gave the boy a long, sad look. I see what's happening here. Do I need antidepressants, sir? Asked my host. Oh no, just a daily dose of self-acceptance. If I have revealed too much of myself and my motivations, so that you look down upon me as the villain of this tale, believe me now when I tell you I have done so for a special purpose. For do I not also possess those same heroic traits of determination, bravery, creativity in my methods, and consistency in my effort, all in service to the biological imperative to survive and reproduce, for which you applaud and congratulate the boy? What does it matter, really, if my methods are unconventional, my form perhaps shocking to you, my feeding style abnormal? I would caution you against delivering judgments colored so heavily by dislike for the unfamiliar and the unknown. What is the difference between me, who seek to preserve my existence by any means, even the grossest, and him, who takes the opinion of his friend into account before making a decision to the same end and purpose? I assure you, it is a difference, not in type, but in degree only. He fought harder, more ruthlessly than I, and so he has won. I, who held the boy's leash, now cower, packed away and forgotten in a dark and lonely corner of his mind. He does not visit or feed me, except occasionally and by accident. My strength is waned, my spirit is dehydrated, my form considerably shrunken. With the addition of communal support, that loathsome girl had friends and introduced them to him. I doubt I shall ever drink from the boy's vitality again. What pains me most is the thought that his and her, children will be reared without the guiding influence of my whispers on their young minds. I will be hard-pressed to imitate to his children the voice of their father when they have not been primed for years with the backdrop of his incessant complaints. The boy has abandoned me. I shiver, cold and alone. But you are still here, warm and receptive, believing in the truth of my whispers, attentive to my voice. You will let me in, won't you? The Adventures of Jack and Celine. Content warning: bugs, fire, darkness. Not for the first time in his life, Jack's Sunday afternoon was saved by vintage pornography. There was a magazine in the dusty antique store, full of printed reproductions of saucy sepia scandals, and he flipped through with a schoolyard grin. "Oh my God," said Lisa. "Don't look at that, you jerk. Hey, you dragged me out to this dump, so don't complain. And I ain't jerking anything. Yet." Lisa rolled her eyes and made that "don't be gross" groan. Or maybe it was the "don't embarrass me in public" one. Whatever. I'm going to go look at armoires and pretend like we're not engaged. Love you too. Jack flipped through a few more magazines, and it struck him how natural everyone looked. No airbrushing, no Photoshop, not like it even existed back then. Their bodies simply were as they were, adequate. Did society just have much healthier ideas of body image back then? It occurred to him there could be real historical merit in formally studying this. And then he wondered how he might go about getting a grant, especially considering he wasn't a historian or any kind of researcher. Oh my God, what am I doing? He set the magazines down before he ruined porn forever. Still, if he had found this, then maybe this antique shop of Lisa's wasn't a total waste of time. He decided to take a stroll down the creaking aisles and see what else he could find. Most of it was kitsch, but when he spotted the toys and games section, his eyes widened. And then Jack spotted her, Celine the centipede, a segmented orange plush, about a foot long, slumped on a shelf. Her fur was patchy, and her one remaining lacquered eye scuffed. But it was unmistakably Celine. Faded memories stirred in his mind. Long forgotten thoughts stretched. A buried history awoke. He recalled a giant bonfire with all his family there. Other people too. Maybe it was a holiday? Little 8-year-old Jack, swaying in the welcoming glow of the flames as they kept the night's chill away, belting out Camptown races, and then collapsing into a fit of giggles. And all the while, Celine safely nestled in the crook of his arm, protecting him from all the monsters that dwelled in the shadows. "Oh, wow," he said, approaching the toy shelf. I can't believe it. He didn't notice Lisa sneak up on him. "What is that gross thing?" "Her name is Celine," Jack said, stressing it. "And she is not a gross thing. She was my best friend growing up. Aw, that's so adorable. And sad. Adorably sad. We went everywhere together. She was there for me when my parents... Lisa hugged him. It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. No, I'm fine. It was so long ago. Jack reached out to pick Celine up from her shelf, and Lisa slapped his hand. Ew, don't touch it! What the hell? You don't know where it's been. It's probably covered in all kinds of gross stains and smells and fleas. Centipedes don't get fleas, Lisa. Jack, she said, squeezing his arm. It's not a real centipede. Now behave. I'm going to go arrange delivery of our new armoire, and after that, we can head down to Murphy's for a pizza and beer. Jack watched her leave, and then turned his attention back to Celine. It looked just like her, just like the one he used to have. In fact, she was even missing her third left foot from the front. Hello, Jack, said Celine. Jack gasped. It is you! Was there ever any doubt? Celine coughed, and some of her fur came loose. Are you all right? Time's been a real bitch to me. Let me tell you, Jackie boy. Speaking of which, who's the tramp? What, you mean Lisa? Hey, she's my fiancé. Oof, condolences, buddy, Jack scoffed. Don't say that. I love her, do you? Or does she just have your balls in her purse? I mean, what the hell is an armoire? I don't know. Exactly, Jack. Nobody does. It's made up. She made it up to sound smarter than you. That's not true. Jack heard the petulant note in his voice. Still, he couldn't help crossing his arms and sinking into himself. You know what she sounds like to me, buddy? Jack shook his head. A shadow monster. Jack gulped. No. His voice was tight. Cold memories washed over his skin. Memories of vile things that lurked in the dark, all biding their time to snatch him. Some lurked under his bed, others in the closet. The biggest one, King Grumbler, lived down in the basement of their old house, where the lone, naked light bulb never gave off enough light. Night was a time of horrors incarnate, at least until Jack met Celine. Celine protected him. She watched over him while he slept, and with her around, he actually could sleep. She showed him the light. She was the light. With her on his team, nothing could stop Jack. He felt a dull ache in his chest. Why had they ever parted ways? It must have been in the chaos after the accident, after his whole life was flipped upside down and he lost everything. Yes, Celine said. A shadow monster. A creepy crawly. Don't! A gristly ghouly. Stop. It. Grabby stabby! Stop. Jack's shout muted the store. Celine raised her front dozen feet in surrender. Okay. Calm down, Spaz. She scratched one of her rear segments. Didn't realize you felt so strongly about it. Although I guess it is pretty brave of you. marrying a shadow monster. Celine, she's not a shadow monster. It just occurred to Jack how much crap was in this antique store, and how weak the lights were. Everywhere he looked, there were dark nooks and umbral crannies. A life-sized suit of knight's armor cast a long shadow down a narrow corridor. But the suit was also big enough to hide at least 3 monsters, if they were real, of course. Jack shook his head. He wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. He'd outgrown it. I don't know what you see in her anyway. I always thought we were better together. We even have a ready-made couple's name. Celiac. Did you just ship us? And what the hell, Celine? Why would you go with Celiac instead of the obvious Jacqueline? Oh, Jacqueline. Celine weathered another coughing fit. You're right. That's pretty. I like it. So, we're agreed then? You're gonna dump the chump and roll with me? What? Drop the slop. Ditch the bitch. Punt the cum. Celine, what has gotten into you? She wasn't always like this, was she? It used to be all fuzzy hugs and warm giggles, and whispering secrets to each other long into the night. For all of his worries and all of his fears, she always had an answer. She'd been just what a frightened, lonely 8-year-old needed. But Jack wasn't a child anymore. I'm not leaving Lisa. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that's a fact. Celine drew herself up. Unbelievable. Crossed dozens of feet. After all I've done for you. She shook her head at her neighbors on the toy shelf. I should have expected it. The shadow apple doesn't fall far from the shadow tree, it seems. What's that supposed to mean? Your parents were the biggest shadow monsters of all. That's not true. Come on, Jackie boy. It's your bedtime. No snacking before dinner. Brush your teeth, young man. They were insane. They were. Jack gulped. His memories of his parents were few and far between, but he knew they were good people. Weren't they? All those things, they just sounded like regular parent things. Celine leaned forward and clapped her feet. Oh my God, you don't remember, do you? Remember what? All I remember is, you used to be nice. Like that time we had a big bonfire with all the neighbors, and we got to stay up way after bedtime, and we sang Camptown races and laughed, and that nice lady gave me an apple juice. Nice lady? That was a paramedic, you dumbass. What? Come on, remember. Celine started humming Camptown races. Jack remembered working on a project earlier in the evening. Lots of papers, shredded papers, papier-mâché. That must have been it. An art project to show his parents how much he loved them. Only, in his memories, he was scattering the papers all around the house. Celine cleared her throat with another cough and began singing. Grab a lighter and some gas. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Kill the shadows with some flame. Oh, dee-doo-dah day. Jack remembered. With Celine clutched under one arm and the other arm dragging a gas can all over the neighborhood. He belted the lyrics out at the top of his lungs. She provided harmony. She told him where to go, how to arrange things, and when everything was ready, "Start your lighter, Jackie love, and give the gas a little kiss." Within seconds, 6 cookie-cutter houses erupted in a huge fireball that rose into the sky, and when bright-hot figures ran out of the conflagration, waving their arms in the air and screaming, Celine told him those were just the shadow monsters. They saw his work, and they had a change of heart. And now they were dancing and singing and happy and bright. And so Jack sang louder too, and he danced with Celine, and he danced much longer than the silly shadow people who got tired real quick and laid down to sleep. Jack screamed. "Aw, you remembered," Celine said. "'Bout damn time, my little pyro," Jack screamed more. "You have no idea how bored I've been since they took you away from me." Jack took a deep breath and continued screaming. "Come on, Jack. Let's go murder some folk. Just like the good old days." Jack continued screaming. Blam! A thundering blast right beside Jack. He fell into trembling silence. An old man in thick, square glasses stood right beside him and lowered a shotgun. Little remained of Celine's shelf, other than scorched wood and a smear of orange fluff. "Ah, dang it," said the old man. "You know, I put up a sign, but people don't read. Keep donating their haunted toys and cursed dolls and whatnot." "Oh well, so you're fine to deliver it on Wednesday?" Lisa asked. "Yes, ma'am. You can count on it. That's a lovely armoire, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it for a long time." He shook Lisa's hand and then departed. "Well," Lisa said, entwining her arm with Jack's shivering one, "I told you that thing was gross. Anyway, guess we're lucky he was nice enough not to charge us for it. Now come on, let's go get that beer and pizza. Speed. Fate." Hi, Buck. Thanks for taking part in the recent Speed Fate speed dating event and submitting your feedback. We hope you enjoyed the evening. Please find below a copy of the comments you left for each of your dates. You will receive feedback submitted about you in a separate mail. Should any of those you said yes to also say yes to you, we will forward each of you a copy of your contact information so you can get in touch. The very best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team. Buck Tucker dated the following people: 18th July 2023, and left the following feedback. Mandy Rogers, age 37, self-help guru. You said, "Fun person. Quick smile, bubbly." The conversation flowed from the get-go. Love the curls. She had so much to say, and was passionate about her interests, even if they were a bit airy-fairy. If there's one thing I respect, it's passion about your subject of choice. refreshing to meet someone as firm a believer in destiny as Mandy is. Could talk to her for hours about sliding doors and parallel universes. Would love to delve deeper into her thoughts on escapable fate. Great date. Would you like to meet Mandy again? Yes. Evelyn Pierce, age 35. School teacher. You said, Evelyn is a dark horse. Shy to start, but relaxed as the date went on. I was nervous too, because she's very smart. I felt dumb by comparison. Very impressed by her career. She seems to be a great teacher, very professional. I get the impression she could be successful at anything she turns her hand to, even partnering with me. She has the voice of authority. It just needs to be strengthened. She could broaden my horizons on intellectual topics, and I could teach her about life outside the classroom. Definitely see potential here. Would you like to meet Evelyn again? Yes, Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. You said. Not much to say about Katerina, except wow. I didn't know drop dead gorgeous was an actual thing, but as soon as I left her table, I felt part of me die, or at least abandon ship so it could stay behind. Her eyes really drew me in. Could get lost in them for hours, not to mention everything else. Her English isn't great, but that didn't matter. Her body language did the talking. Can tell she doesn't take shit from anyone. And with those muscles, you wouldn't want to forget her birthday. Bit intimidating, but that's a turn on, so it's a yes from me. Would you like to meet Katerina again? Yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. You said, Ashley is a bit mousy. Not my type physically, but has an air of mystery about her, which is attractive. Not sure why she was at the event. She was an ice queen, and I had to work hard to make conversation. Wasn't very successful. Didn't find out much about her, other than that she has cats and works in admin. I'm not a cat person, but I have a dog who hates cats, so he would probably chase them off if we got together. Pretty sure she just had her walls up. I have a feeling I could get her to loosen up. I am 100% sure it would be worth it. It would be nice to see her show some emotion. Challenge accepted. Would you like to meet Ashley again? Yes. To Buck Tucker from Speed Fate Team. Date 19th July 2023, 16:31. Subject: Your speed. Fate. Feedback. Hi Buck. Thanks again for attending the recent Speed Fate speed dating event. We have now compiled the feedback we received from the people you met and have included it below. You will receive the contact information for anyone who said yes, that you said yes to, also in a separate mail. The best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team. Mandy Rogers, age 37, yoga teacher. They said, Buck was a pleasure to talk with. very open-minded, and I didn't get the impression he was humoring me when I was rattling on about chakras and meditation. He seemed to be genuinely fascinated. Was interesting hearing his views on the afterlife and reincarnation. He carries a lot of nomadic energy and seems to be as much of a free spirit as I am, even if yoga and mindfulness aren't his thing. Would definitely like to bounce more ideas off him. I promised him a tarot reading if we meet again. So here's hoping. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, Evelyn Pierce, age 35, school teacher. They said, Buck is great. He's a lot more adventurous than me, very extrovert, which is exciting. I need someone like that to get me out of my comfort zone. Raising 2 teenagers as a full-time single dad is not an easy task, so I take my hat off to him. Also impressed by his role as a part-time scout leader, setting time aside to take kids camping and teach them about the great outdoors. That's inspirational. Would definitely be interested in getting to know him better. Always a sucker for a good dad. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. They said, Buck is interesting, man. Similar interest in keep fit, training for marathon. Now, I think he has a lot of work to do, but is good. He has goal to work for. Perhaps he needs some help training. Little out of shape. But I don't have heart to say. Cute smile, kind eyes, love-bearded man. Also interested in his musical career. Must be nice to date with guitarist of upcoming rock band. I think I should like to see this. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. They said, God loves a trier. I gave him nothing, but he kept on trucking. Bonus points for that. If I was him, I would have given up in the first minute, like everyone else. 5 must have been torture. Really hate this shit. Only did it 'cause my friends signed me up, and I never would have heard the end of it. Whatever. Promise I'll make more of an effort next time. Not that he's going to want to meet me again. He'd probably sooner throw himself under a bus. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, 2. Buck. Tucker from Fate. Team. Date. 20th July, 2023, 11:30. Subject, your speed. Fate. Contacts. Hi, Buck. Please find attached contact information for your matches from the speed date event you attended on July 16th, 2023. We hope you had an enjoyable experience and have our fingers crossed. One of your matches will be the one. We've had a number of success stories to date, some leading to marriage, and are always interested in hearing how things go. The best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate, the Speed Fate team, dressed in his least shabby suit. well-worn blue check shirt, newly bought navy tie, and doused in the least repulsive knockoff Hugo Boss aftershave he could find. Tucker drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the redhead in the white dress, whose hair was tied back in a hastily knotted ponytail and whose name was displayed on the sticker attached to her chest. "Evelyn," he announced, clasping his hands together and placing his elbows on the table. "So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I felt we had a good connection, even though we only talked for 5 minutes. How have you been? How are those school kids? Hope they've been listening to teacher across the white-clothed tabletop, past the bottle of champagne chilling in a stainless steel cooler, 2 sparkling champagne flutes, and the candle protruding from a chrome holder." Evelyn met Tucker's gaze and swallowed the lump of saliva that had stuck in her throat. He hadn't thought it possible for her to be more nervous than she'd been at the speed date, especially since they knew each other now. But there she was, eyes darting about, glancing at the people either side of them, beads of sweat visible on her brow. It was going to be harder than he thought to get her to loosen up, he realized. But that didn't matter. In a way, he found her nervousness endearing. "They're fine," she said, her voice coming out a whisper, forcing her to clear her throat. "They're good. They don't give me trouble. I never have to reprimand anyone." "Really? There's not a single troublemaker in the bunch? What age did you say they were?" Tucker reached forward abruptly, suit sleeve riding up his arm, and closed his hand around the neck of the champagne bottle, causing Evelyn to jump, eyes darting to his unclean fingers. 14, she said, returning her eyes to his as he took the bottle from the cooler and started undoing the wire holding its cork in place. "And 15. No, honestly, nothing like that. I've never had to punish anyone, if that's what you mean." "I see," Tucker said, narrowing his eyes as if to peer into her mind. "Bit boring, isn't it? All that authority, and there's not a single obnoxious teenager for you to use it on? I find that hard to believe. As a former teenager in a school full of stuck-up bitches and bullying brats, I find that extremely hard to believe. But hey, if that's what you're saying, pop!" The cork shot from the bottle with explosive energy, making the nervous teacher jump again. "I'll take your word for it. How about your colleagues? They all super nice, too?" "Come on, you can be honest. Bet there's a couple of real shits, right? Get off on tormenting the kids? Probably a few pervs, too. Pedo bastards? I know there were at my school." "Oh, I know. Can think of at least 3 motherfuckers who deserved to have their dicks cut off." Sitting forward, extending his arm, pouring bubbly liquid into his date's glass, he glared as she shook her head softly, almost imperceptibly. and sucked in her lips. He snorted, smiled, a shake of the head as he finished pouring, and moved the bottle to his own glass. You don't have to be so nervous, Evelyn. It's just me and you. You can tell me anything. I'm very open-minded, a man of the world. I know the way things work. I'm familiar with what goes on behind closed doors. In response to his comment about it being just him and her eyes had flicked to the left and right again, almost as if to remind herself there were people around them, though it shouldn't have been necessary, considering how boisterous they were. "Don't worry about them," Tucker said, depositing the champagne bottle back into the cooler with a clatter and crunch. "What we talk about is none of their business, and vice versa. Let's just focus on getting to know each other." He lifted his glass, took a sip, let the bubbles pop in his mouth and tickle his throat. Effervescent. Evelyn watched him return the glass to the table with dampening eyes and quivering lip, bubbles spinning in the amber liquid in the untouched glass before her. "So you're not a mean teacher, and you have no asshole students, and everyone you work with is lovely. Okay, I get it. They've conditioned you well. Turning a blind eye is second nature. That's okay. That can be fixed. You just have to open your eyes, see things for what they are. Identify the evil in people. Acknowledge it. Accept that it's there to be destroyed. And do you know the best way to do that?" He crossed his arms, lifted an eyebrow, cocked his head. "And no," she said, the first tear escaping an eye and running down a scratched, grime-covered cheek. "I don't. Buck, you know, I think you got the wrong impression of me. I'm not a bad person. I treat people well. I don't. I'm not. The best way to do that." He cut her off, craning his head closer to hers, his nose almost touching the trembling candle flame, "is to find it in yourself and expose it. Draw it out into the light, like a putrid, rotting vampire. Set it free and watch the havoc it wreaks. Once you know what your own darkness is capable of, you'll be able to recognize it in others. And then you'll be able to do something about it. Like me. It's simple, really. So come on, let's go on a journey of self-discovery. Aren't you drinking? Please, Buck. I don't think I'm what you're looking for. I think we should... Have you ever cheated on someone, Evelyn? Deliberately or accidentally, thinking it was okay because, you know, it wasn't that serious and they weren't invested. No, I never. Have you ever lied to someone to let them down gently, or just because you wanted some attention, to be wined and dined, treated like a princess, to pass the time? Buck, I want to stop, please. Have you ever hit anyone? A sibling? A child? Have you ever lost your cool and lashed out blindly with a hand or a foot? Hurt someone out of anger or desire? Please, so you don't use your authority to punish students. How about something else? Have you seduced one? All those virile young teenagers staring you up and down. Have you ever taken advantage of it? Tasted forbidden fruit? Or maybe not them. Maybe one of their parents. Maybe a bit of home-wrecking sates an urge. I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know what kind of person you think I am, but I'm not. Have you ever thought about killing someone, Evelyn? Pulling a cord tight around their neck and watching them choke, sticking a knife in their guts and twisting it, enjoying the warmth of the warm, sticky blood that... Jesus, God, somebody help me, please, somebody help me. She screamed, she stomped, she shook, she howled and yelled and roared. Teardrops flew from her eyes, but nobody helped. "Oh, Evelyn," said Tucker, after allowing her a moment. "I had a good feeling about you. I thought if I could get you to see the light and come around to my way of thinking, we'd have fun expelling assholes from the world. But it's not going to happen, is it?" She continued to scream, wrenching and twisting in the chair she was tied to. So he shrugged and took hold of the candle, slid it from its holder, revealed the blade that protruded from its base. The teacher's eyes went wide, and her voice cracked as he angled it towards her throat, leaned further forward, and swiped left. A second mouth fell open in the smooth, pale skin of her throat, and she gasped, gurgled, thrashing more urgently as a spine-chilling groan crept from her soul. Tucker sat back and watched. No glee showed on his face. No excitement. He watched blankly. The knife held loose, the thin layer of blood on its blade, sprinkling scarlet splashes on the tablecloth. If there was an air about him at all, as his second hope for a partner fizzled out, it was one of disappointment. He really would have liked her as a soulmate. After a minute, when Evelyn stopped twitching, he checked to ensure his shirt and jacket hadn't been soiled, then slid the candle knife back into its holder, licked his forefinger, extinguished the candle's flame, pushed his chair back, and got up. He took a napkin from the table, dabbed at his mouth as he stepped back, watching his scuffed loafers, careful not to step into the blood that had pooled beneath the chair behind him, the blood that had oozed from boring, not mysterious Ashley. To his left, bound and gagged, Katerina lunged her upper body towards him, impressive arm muscles bulging through the gossamer thin material of the dress he'd clad her in, brown eyes glowering with hate, teeth gnashing behind the black rubber strap that subdued her mouth. The chair was bolted to the floor. Her feet were chained to the chair. Her movement was restricted. He wasn't ready for her yet. A fist to the face, she slumped, head lolling loosely over her chest, to the right of the teacher. In the center of a long, abandoned warehouse, another dressed table, another pair of chairs, and terrified captive. A puddle of urine, not blood. On the floor around her feet, Tucker fished a lighter from his pocket. as he stepped around the corpse of bleeding Evelyn, lit the wick of the candle dagger protruding from chrome scabbard. Lighter, back in pocket, he took hold of the rubber gag around the girl's head, pulled it off, relishing the snap as it came loose. "Please," she said, all wild, rabbit eyes and mascara-smeared face. "Don't hurt me. I'll do anything. I promise. Anything." He drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the blonde in the ivory-white dress, whose curls hung loose around her face, and whose name was displayed on a sticker. "Mandy," he announced, spreading his hands to greet her and bowing theatrically. "So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I believe you had some thoughts on escapable fate."